tough to get out of that knee injury, knee pain cycle. And that's where the sled comes in. It's a solution.
I'm someone who has worked my legs out forever, like most of my life, but I've never done these exercises. And part of me is like, how the fuck did I not know about this? How am I finding out about this from Jamie? And then from Instagram. I mean,
it's very simple. Really. It's very simple how this occurs. So I wasn't taught it either and didn't get a scholarship to college. Painting walls during the day, I had no backup plan. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to make it as a basketball player. I'm just going to figure out how to bulletproof my knees. So then I start really digging into the corners of the earth to find data. You see what I mean?
Right.
Everything we're talking about right now in this podcast, without question, will be in the textbooks in 20, 30 years.
Wow.
But it takes a long time for textbooks to change. You see what I mean? So you're not going to find the stuff we're talking about in the main textbooks that people are going to schooling and learning. So I find some pockets of information, work really hard on it, rejuvenate my knees, manage to market myself and get a college basketball scholarship. Played 2 years at a junior college. You know, like in America we have these 2-year JUCO, a lot of wild stories. Had an amazing coach there and kept healing my knees while playing. So like I was improving as I was going through my first years of college. Got a full ride D1 scholarship at age 23.
Wow.
So I went from Mr. 18-year-old on my butt. Like people from my hometown, by the time I was 23 getting a D1 scholarship was like, what the heck is going on? So I actually started training kids in the summer just because it was like this unbelievable thing that happened. But here's what I'm getting to. I go to this Division I school and the strength coach who has his degrees from college and everything, he's not going to let me do my drills. The very things that got me the scholarship. Isn't that a wild concept?
What did he say?
You're not allowed to do your knees over toes stuff here. So the school gave me a scholarship. Not going to let me do my drills. The very things that got me the scholarship. Isn't that a wild concept?
What did he say?
Division I school. And the strength coach who has his degrees from college and everything, he's not going to let me do my drills. The very things that got me the scholarship. Isn't that a wild concept?
What did he say?
You're not allowed to do your knees over toes stuff here. So the school gave me a scholarship. Full ride. I'm going to be, living out my dream, having a chance to play in March Madness, whatever. Now I mentioned I was 23.
Right.
So I get a call from the head coach before the season, and he tells me, NCAA's denied your eligibility. They say your clock is up. None of us knew. It's a very rare thing. I've never heard of this happening of someone like fixing their knees and then later going to college. So we did a whole appeal process, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't want to now have to go 2 years trying to train behind the strength coach's back and look at the system. So it's like, it's not his fault. He's just doing what he learned in the textbook.
Right.
How the heck is the textbook going to change? You see what I mean?
Did you have a conversation with him privately?
Anyone can relate if you've been in team sports and you bring something up to like the head strength coach or the head coach or something like that. There's a lot of pressure. Like it's like you're risking getting in murky water, having a bad reputation on the team. So I never got past that opening conversation with him of like, I've been doing these things.
So did he see you doing it? Like how did this happen?
Yeah, I told him which exercise, like these are the things I've been doing that are like, that have me able to play because I couldn't play before. So
explain how the conversation takes place.
So I meet him, he's going to be running my program.
Right.
And I say, okay, I need to add in these things. Like you've seen these knees over toes split squats, right? Very uncommon exercise. No, you're not going to be doing that here. So it's just a total stop. So I'm not going to be doing.
So he tells you can't do them?
No knees over toes.
Does he say why?
No, it's no knees over toes in his gym. So I knew I was going to have to be going, just on my own time outside of school and classes and workouts to keep up my routines. So when this whole thing went on with my eligibility getting denied, the head coach thought I should just get a lawyer. I'd be able to fight it, but I actually just withdrew from the thing and became a trainer.
So when he was saying this to you, did you try to argue it? Did you try to say, this is what's helped me? This is what got me here?
Exactly.
And what did he say?
No knees over toes in his gym.
Did you show him some of the literature? Did you show him some of the Poliquin stuff?
No, I never got that far. But it was also, for me, being a new recruit college kid, it was like, that was an intimidating moment for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have excellent communication skills. I was a nobody, I was just a new recruit.
That sucks.
Yeah, but in his mind, he's just enforcing what he believes,
and what he learned
is the right thing to do.
Exactly. He's literally a professional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So new data can come out, and new data has even come out on full knee bend and your knee going over toes and stuff like that, and how it actually leads to less pain and more athleticism. But now, from the moment that data comes out, it's not like the textbooks magically all switch. I mean, the whole curriculum and textbooks and the tests, and so even in my first couple of years of college, I would have to be guessing on tests, like, is the answer the actual answer that's up to date right now, or is the answer what the textbook thinks is the answer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And it goes like that for diet, and you see like new data is constantly coming out, right?
Yeah.
So that's why for me, it's really nothing. I'm not even trying to be critical of that system. There's so many cool aspects to college and stuff like that. I just knew I had to create an alternative.
Yeah.
So it was like a light bulb went off, and I just went hardcore as a trainer from that point.
Now, when did you start getting traction? Like when did people start paying attention and recognize, like, hey, this guy is really on something?
Making results in person. So I had a gym for 7 years, and I became known as the knee guy.
Where was your gym at?
Clearwater, Florida. It's like a beach town by Tampa.
Sure.
Tampa's the main city. Oh, cool. So getting results in person, became known as like the knee guy, and quite honestly, friends telling me like, you need to like go on social media and stuff like that. So I was typecast as the fragile knee guy. I had nicknames for this. My high school nickname was Old Man because of my knees. Now it's like that's my ultimate advantage now is my knees when I play basketball. So the thing I was worst at is now what I'm best at.
That's so wild.
Yeah, and for people out there, like even if you think, oh, my knees are shot, I can't do anything about it, find a sled, start dragging it backwards.
And what about people that have a lot of cartilage damage and meniscus damage?
More damage, more you need the sled because it gets the circulation. The toughest thing is when you start losing that ability to communicate to an area. So if you just have great knee bend and blah, it's very easy to get in there, work out your legs. What happens when you can't even figure out how to work out your legs because your knees hurt so much? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where the sled is the trick. We haven't really seen, there's no such thing as like too much damage when it comes to just, okay, if you can walk backwards. If you can walk backwards, you could drag a pound backward, 2 pound, keep going. More circulation while getting strength at the same time. You can will yourself out of extremely devastating knee issues. But I would say that you'd have to put in 100 miles resisted backwards to know for sure, oh, am I actually doomed or not? And the more you do it, you start getting more communication in the area, you start getting stronger, it starts getting better. So that's been my formula for a long time now. And I think it would take the average person about 5 years of consistent work. But that would seem like, oh my God, 5 years, But we don't think anything of spending decades to become good at a bench press or martial arts. You know what I mean? Or the piano.
Well, there's the other thing is if you don't do those 5 years, your knees are just going to still suck, and those 5 years are going to happen whether you like it or not.
Still getting cardio.
Yeah, it's not like you hit pause on the world and like,
Exactly.
oh, let's just pause life and time, and I'll do something else for 5 years. No, the 5 years are going to happen.
I'm talking 5 minutes or less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about 100. Like my average is about 100 meters a day backward.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was doing long sessions.
You can.
Is that good? Is that bad? Like, I'm not sore.
I think over the years I've seen that the more frequent, because
more
it allows you
important.
to get that circulation. Having a really good setup and getting it in more frequently, I've seen this work really well.
What is it about going backwards?
Yep. So to be younger. So there was a gross misunderstanding of knee over toes equals more pressure on your knee, therefore avoid the area completely. And I can see why that would be. That could make sense. But that was just a conclusion based on seeing that there was more pressure, not realizing that the way human bodies age and stuff, they actually need motion and pressure, even something like compression, like a knee bending all the way. Motion and compression is how you get synovial fluid to carry nutrients to the joint. So we would think avoid bending the joint to make it last longer. It's the opposite. Now just forcing into pain, that wouldn't make sense either short term. You see what I'm saying? So my job is like an art of how do you get motion and compression and pressure? How do you do all that stuff safely? So it's a subject in itself, but that's not a subject you can learn in any textbook yet. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But that will be in the textbooks. It's all being, these are actually like just basics of physics and anatomy and how the body works. But exercise is pretty new if you think about it, you know?
Yeah, like rigorous exercise on large scale, like amongst the entire population of the planet. How old is that? Is it 100 years?
Right. Yeah. There's no way. Right. And okay, when did it get common and stuff? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger and guys popularized it.
Yeah.
But they were trying to pump up their muscles. They weren't worried about long-term knee issues and stuff.
Well, what?
I don't know.
1896. Where was the first one? Greece. Oh, well, of course.
Well, probably so. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now I know that dating back to the late 1800s, there was already evidence in books of people doing that Nordic hamstring curl exercise. So
Really?
the concept of exercising with our own body weight goes back quite a long time.
So someone was holding the ankles down, or what were they doing?
Yeah. It was in a sort of gymnastic setting. So that exercise.
Doing it, but the fact that you're implementing this program that's so revolutionary in 2022. You know, I mean, when did you start putting it out there?
In the last few years.
Yeah.
Very recently.
That's very weird.
Yeah. People have only been noticing probably in the last year or so.
But it's weird when you think about how much money is involved in sports and how many people are trying to make a living as a professional athlete.
Yeah.
How many like super dedicated, ultra driven, and disciplined individuals, and they still didn't know about this.
Yep. And that's because if we're only going off the data from the education system, you know, we're doomed to that.
Yeah.
degree.
The-
I was just saying seven. You were saying how serious the athletes are, you know.
Yeah.
But 7 times as much money has been spent studying how do you accelerate more versus decelerate, even
Right.
though the majority of our injuries happen in deceleration.
Right.
So it's like we're always going to be the effect of what the education system is, as long as we're saying that only what's in those textbooks is true, and that's not the case. You know what I
Right.
mean? Google itself is still operating. Google will tell you that if you have knee pain, you can ice it. You can take anti-inflammatory drugs, which now are looking like actually break down your cartilage. So I was popping those like crazy, not knowing those may have been actually wearing down cartilage instead of helping. And then I was icing. That Google also said to do that. The guy who came up with the rest, ice, compress, elevate, he now says he was wrong. It doesn't even matter that he says he was wrong because it's already in the textbooks what he said 30 years ago.
What does he say to do now?
Now he says motion. And get,
Motion.
Yeah, you need to get motion to it. You need to actually get blood flow to it because the icing can actually delay healing.
Yeah,
I think.
do you think you should ice injuries at all
Well, I think when you get hurt and you're in pain, the ice works. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who,
to reduce pain?
yeah,
But not necessarily to help heal.
exactly. I think that's where it comes in.
Yeah.
And now,
Because the problem is like, this is a first, folks. This is a first for the podcast. This is wild that you can do that and just bounce up like that. Nobody can hear you though. So you're come back to the microphone. Because the problem is like when you're saying that, it's all cool stuff. The way you're doing that, how long did it take before you? Let's explain what you're doing. He's on his shins and knees, and he goes all the way backwards, and without using his hands, goes all the way
Yeah.
up. How long did it take before you could do that?
You're looking at years.
Years.
Years. And I think that 5-year rule on the backward sled to get the healing while working on the ranges of motion stuff.
That knee thing is
I think
wild.
about 5 years.
That when you go all the way back.
That means you have to have enough. And I wanted to demo it cold because it's,
Right.
you know what it's like as an athlete. Like,
Yeah.
it's easier to be like warmed up and like show something off.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
So,
No, here's a video of you doing it.
yeah. So
look at your doggy.
people often assume like that I'm in pain or something doing that. It's like totally pain free and easy. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
an ability. But that means at my knee joint that I can handle my own body weight in both range of motion and strength.
Yes.
So I think that's a wonderful test. But if you think that if you think knees over toes training is going and trying that would be very risky. You know what I mean?
Right
So
away it would be very risky.
That's why
That's
I've
something you build up to.
Right, exactly.
What about so?
And that's it. So it's one service. There's no higher tiers. We work our butt off watching your form and guiding you. That's what we do.
Well, I'm really impressed, and I really appreciate how much information you put online for free because you put out so much for so many people. And I read you saying that this is for like the 10-year-old you who didn't have access to that, which I think is wonderful. I think it's really amazing because there's your methods are very unique, and you work really hard to develop the system, but yet you give it away.
Yeah, I mean, I base every business decision, everything like that on what did that younger version of me need? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I would have needed to see this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would have needed to see it to be able to buy into it and actually want to do it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then people are supportive. Enough people want to have their form coached. Enough people. What I deliver is literally
Yeah.
with each regression, meaning scaling it. How can anyone start that? So my mom has been key for that. She's 67, and like my mom has to be able to like enjoy doing every exercise. You know what I mean? So, but that. When I got into this industry, I didn't think of exercise like that. I didn't think of abilities as that anyone could improve on an ability.
Right.
Not everyone is going to be as funny, but could everyone be a comedian on some level? Could everyone work at it? You know what I mean?
Right. Everyone can improve from where you are to where you are in the future. If you work hard, you can get better at it.
Exactly. So that's really my passion, is helping people realize they can exercise. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to help people.
Yeah. No, it's clear. It's really clear. That's something that really comes through with all the content that you put out.
I appreciate that. Yeah.